Wow, thank you, Esther. That was very deep, very powerful. I think we can go home now. Okay, I think that's enough. Okay, we don't need anything more than that. That was awesome. Thank you so much. I think many of us can relate to that. All right, we're going to continue our conference here on conflict resolution. But before we get started, I just want to, and I don't have a picture to show you, but I just want you to visualize just how big this topic is of marriage, not just conflict. Conflict is just one part of marriage. I have a full curriculum of stuff on marriage, and it's just like so many topics. I estimate about 10 different topics, like God's design for the husband, for the wife. There's communication, there's sex. There's so many topics, and conflict resolution is just one of those topics within it, okay? And also, if you just pick conflict resolution, even within that, there's like 8 major categories. And so it's just such a big, big topic. It's something you will never finish. I'll never finish. Marriage is such a huge topic. It's kind of like an ongoing journey. And so I hope and pray that as you continue to grow as Christians and as a church, that you'll do more than just a special event, but you'll make it part of your regular growth as a Christian through your small groups, through your accountability, that you'll learn all the topics, not just conflict. Conflict is all about fixing a relationship, but there's more than fixing, right? There's the building, there's so much more to that. So try to put that all into perspective. But with that said, let's continue our journey here, and we're talking about conflict resolution here. Every marriage is going to go through that. That's inevitable, okay? There is no marriage that is spared from it. In fact, the more you stay married, the more conflict there's going to be. And why is that? Well, this conference is going to continue to explain that to you, okay? Now, today is a full day. We're also going to have 2 breakout sessions. It's an opportunity for the guys and the gals to separate and have a discussion time. We're very pleased to have Dr. Mary Rowe with us, and so I assume there's going to be a good introduction for her later. And so we're just excited that the ladies will have an opportunity to spend time with her, and then I will spend time with the guys today. And then afterwards, there will be a time to get together as one group, and you guys can ask questions to me, okay? So I'll be on the hot seat for that. And so there you go. Those are my real phone numbers right there. If you have not taken them down last night, go ahead and write them down. So during the Q&A, and even after Q&A, if you have a question or a comment, you can text me. So during Q&A, if you don't like to raise your hand and talk live, go ahead and text me your questions, and I will answer them live for you, okay? And also, as I've done in the past, since it's my 4th visit to Colorado, I've always spent time counseling people. And so I'll be pleased to do that at no cost to you. Just don't go to my website, because there's a whole administration involved with that I cannot control. And so you don't want to do that. You just want to text me. We'll just meet, and it'll be a pleasure to sit down with you. All right, that's all the house cleaning matters. Let's get started. And we're going to get started with, a review. Remember last night was reason number 4. We have 4 sessions together. And so last night was reason number 4, unmet expectations. I don't have time to go over all of that. It's not just expectations, but unmet expectations. You carry all of that into your marriage, and that's what drives the conflict, all the anger and the bitterness that you guys have. And so last night was number 4. We're doing a countdown just for fun. So last night was the most general one. This morning will be reason number 3. And then this afternoon will be reason number 2. And then we'll have the number 1 reason why we fight on Sunday morning, okay? So that's the plan, to go over all of those things. So there's a place for you to take notes if you have a program. And so let's get started. Here is reason number 3. Okay, we got a little connection problem here. There it is. Reason number 3 is personality differences. Now, these are very broad categories, but we're going to talk about differences. Another word is stylistic differences. You got a different style, have you noticed? From your spouse. I know when you dated, you put your best foot forward, right? Some of you guys, when you dated, you pretend to be somebody else. But after time, you know what I mean? The real you comes out. You cannot escape it. The real you will eventually comes out. The truth will come out. Your personality is going to be revealed. And chances are very good that your personality is the opposite of your spouse's personality. Have you noticed that? If you haven't noticed that, okay, you are either blind, but actually even blind people, no disrespect to blind people, even blind people know that, okay? All right. You are opposite. If you haven't noticed that, you are still on your honeymoon. I don't know what is going on. But they say love is blind, but marriage is an eye-opener. You know what I mean? So you get married, and you realize just how different you are. And so you have now married somebody who is the exact opposite of you. I have been counseling for over 30 years, and I have never met a couple that are exactly alike. Never, okay? And so that's what we're dealing with here right now. And so you know how when you were dating or in the beginning, your friends would say to you, oh, you guys are so alike. You know, or you say things like that when you just start dating, right? You're like, oh, we have so much in common. No, you don't, okay? You say that, but that's not true, okay? You say all those nice things for whatever romantic reason, but you guys are not alike at all. And so you get married and you realize you guys have absolutely nothing in common at all. You guys know what I'm talking about? There's a name for that, okay? It's called opposites attract, okay? You chose to marry somebody who is the exact opposite of you. And it's called opposites attract. It's generally true, and more often than not, you guys are just completely different. And so, for example, have you noticed, for example, that the woman, she's a cheerleader, right? She's just so excited. She's so emotional. She is so exuberant, so talkative, so expressive, right? But her husband, he's like he's a little serious, right? He's a little logical. Do you know what I mean? He's just very, very logical and very cold. Have you noticed that? One side is very excited, and the other side is very, very logical. Now, some people think that when you date, you're dating because you guys have a lot in common. That is not true at all. You're actually dating, whether you realize it or not, somebody who is the exact opposite of you, okay? So, for example, she is such a go-getter, right? She is just so passionate. She's so excited. She has so many goals, and she is just so aggressive. But he's just so relaxed. You know what I mean? He's just so comfortable. He has no goals, okay? And so that's what we're dealing with here. Oh, she's just so, she's just so conservative, right? And she's so risk-averse. I mean, she doesn't want to take any risk. Very conservative, stays with everything, but she marries somebody who's, right, an ultimate risk taker. He's not afraid of danger, right? He's looking for it. And so in every way, they are opposites of one another. Or, right, he is so uptight, okay, so serious about everything, but his wife is so easygoing. You know what I mean? So easygoing, happy all the time, and he kind of likes that. Kind of likes how she is very much like that. Or, oh, she is so controlling, all right? You know, she always, tries to control her husband, and her husband, he doesn't mind following her, And so you're going to talk about those things today in your breakout sessions, all right? And just how different you are. Okay, now in the beginning, okay, you kind of like it. Okay, it's refreshing. I mean, nobody wants to date somebody who is exactly like them. That's the truth. You actually find it very refreshing to be with somebody who is the exact opposite of you. I know for me, my wife, I'm telling you right now, I'll probably say it again. We've been married 30 plus years, 32 years almost now. There is nothing. I cannot think of one thing that we share. We are that much opposites of one another. So everything you see in me, my wife is the exact opposite of. And it's just an amazing thing. Even after all these years, I'm fascinated by that. You would think that when you're stuck together for that many years, that maybe you would rub off on each other a little bit, but you don't. You actually become more and more who you are. And so that's just a very fascinating thing to me. And so you become more and more you, and the differences become even more pronounced. They become more exacerbated, so to speak. And so in every way, it becomes a very dramatic situation because you know what? The more you're married, you kind of relax, right? In the beginning, you might behave yourself, but you kind of relax. And when you relax, you know what happens? The real you comes out. And when the real you comes out, that's when the fireworks begin, okay? So I found this funny poster online. It says, opposites attract, and then they drive each other insane, okay? And so that's exactly what's happening. You become attracted to one another, you get married, and then you drive each other crazy, okay? And so this is one of the main reasons why you fight. That's what this weekend is about. It's about looking at the reasons why you have conflict. Unmet expectations was reason number 4. And number 3 is a really big one, fundamental, very basic. And that is, you guys are so different from one another, different styles. And different styles are going to lead to all kinds of problems, unmet expectations, all kinds of other clashes. Now, let's confirm that in the beginning, okay, you guys dated and started getting serious and got married because you actually liked the differences, okay? You liked it. You liked the fact that she was so different from you. Guys like that. Serious guys, they like ladies that are very bubbly and excited. It comforts them. It makes them feel refreshed, okay? Or ladies that are very strong and confident. Guys that are a little more not like that, they are very drawn to power or the confidence in the woman. And so I'm not being critical. I'm just, observing this is kind of how it is. And so as you guys get married and then you spend a lot of years together, 10, 20, 30 years, here's what happens. The thing that you liked in the beginning, now you don't like it all, okay? You liked it in the beginning, but then later you don't like it at all. Experts call that love first, hate later, okay? So that's the idea. Now we're talking about the same thing that you guys liked, you absolutely hate later. So for example, I love, for example, how shy he is, right? How introverted he is. I really like that. He never complains. I have a neighbor like that. He's an engineer. You know how engineers, I apologize for the stereotype, but you know how engineers, they're very analytical, and so they're not always talking out loud, and so you can bet his wife, she is like, she talks, but she always compliments him saying, I love how he's just so nice. He never complains, okay? He never talks about the things that bother him. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's because he's an introvert, okay? It's not because he's so nice, but that's just his style. He doesn't talk about those things. And so in the beginning, you love the fact that he is like that. He's so shy, he doesn't complain. And then later, you hate the fact that he never talks about anything, right? He never talks about it, and you hate how he never makes eye contact, right? Women love eye contact. Men hate eye contact. Okay, have you noticed that? Most men, they don't want to make the eye contact. They avoid it. They avoid conversations and things like that. So that's how his style is. He wants to avoid all confrontations, all serious matters, but she is not like that. You know what I mean? She wants to talk about it. Let's talk right now. But it's like, man, every time, a woman says, ladies, I don't know if you know this, if when you say, hey, can we talk? Guys get like, oh no, because they don't want to talk. Okay, it's too uncomfortable for them. And so these are the stylistic differences that come out. We're talking about love first, hate later. And so I love the fact that he is what? The life of the party, right? Everybody loves him. He just brings so much energy. And then later, it's like, why can't he be serious? You know what I mean? He's always joking around. I can never talk about anything serious with him. And so what is it? Love first, hate later. Okay? And so all of these things are part of, we're going to try to, let's see. There we go. Opposites attract. That's the thing. But when opposites are together for a long time, what happens is opposites attack. Okay? Opposites attract, opposites attack. So these are the different styles that we bring into conflict. And so reason number 3, last night was reason number 4. Reason number 3 today, this morning, is a very important one. You guys got different styles. You have different personalities. You're wired differently, okay? And you bring that into the relationship, okay? And so here's an actual counseling case that I did about 15 years ago. And it's a kind of a love first, hate later thing. He's like, I love how she's so carefree. You know, he was kind of an educated man, very, very serious. His wife was just so carefree, just so loose, and he loved that about her. But the engagement, okay, they weren't even married yet, but the fireworks were going off during the engagement because he had, okay, let me show you this. He had a car that was so neat, but she just kept trashing his car, okay? She's just so carefree, she didn't care. So she's just trashing his car, and it just freaked him out. Because on one hand, he was a germaphobe, but he had a car that's 20 years old, but the car was just so nice. It was so clean. It still had the new car smell. I mean, it's just so nice, and it was driving him crazy. And it became a major issue in counseling. How can we live together, okay, when we're just so opposites of one another, okay? Here's another serious counseling case. In fact, it was a pastor and his wife, okay? And she's like, well, I love how he's just so relaxed. He brings so much happiness into my life. And then later, true story, why can't he get a job, you know? He's just relaxing all the time. I come home and he's suntanning outside, all right? And so, true story, very, very serious. I know we laugh, but it's actually something that begins to really get you very, very upset. Here's another true situation that actually broke the engagement, okay? It's like a love first, hate later. I love how generous she is. She's just so loving. I mean, there is no expense. She will just, spend anything to show how much she loves her family, her friends. Unfortunately, she was engaged to an accountant, okay? And so he's like, she just cannot stop spending, okay? And he's like, I cannot reconcile this in my mind. And eventually, they broke the engagement. So these are very serious things. We're talking about opposites attract. And what's the next phrase? Opposites what? Opposites attack. And so that's the evolution in marriage, where in the beginning you're attracted, and then what? How long does it take before you start attacking one another? 5 years? 10 years? It's different with everyone. Some people, even during the engagement period, they can't take it anymore. And so the attacking is going on. Conflict is building. And the longer you are married, and I'm a testimony of that. We've been married 31 plus years, and we are as different as ever, okay? I can't even think of one thing that we share in common. So, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So, as I told you, all of my workshops are 2 parts. In the beginning, I kind of lay out the problem so that you can see how the problem is. And then in the second part, we go over this biblical solutions to it, okay? And so here we go. Number 1, what we're going to do is understand the source of your differences. We need to confirm, and this is the most basic, where these differences are coming from. Let me say something here. Do not misunderstand what I'm about to say, okay? These differences ultimately, and I'm talking about ultimately, do not come from sin, okay? I know you're so angry and you're irritated by the differences, you might think that it's just something really, really bad. But when I talk about number 1, I'm talking about where it ultimately is coming from, and it's not coming from a bad place. The source, okay, of these differences is God. God Himself, okay? God is the one who created the personality differences. Or what are some other words? Temperament, disposition, okay? So, we have other labels, what? Introvert, extrovert, okay, people pleaser. Whatever wiring that you have, that is God. God created you a certain way, and you are not going to change that, okay? God is a creative God. You might have seen that in your children. If you have more than one child, chances are one child is like you, the other child's like your spouse. They're different personalities. You are not going to change it, okay? You need to bring out the best in that, okay? But you will not begin, or you will not be able to change it. And so the source is not sin. The source is God himself. Now, if God is a source, okay, if God is a source, you're going to have to, number 2, recommit to your differences. You're going to have to commit that God is the one who gave that personality, that disposition, okay? By the way, can I take a time out? I know this is not a marriage example, but it just came to my mind because I had to deal with this recently. My son, you haven't met him, okay? He's in high school right now. There is not one thing he and I share. Not one thing. He is a spitting image of my wife, okay? So he was born, I could tell from the minute he was born, just his facial expressions and everything, it's just like Mom. I've already told you that my wife and I are completely opposites of one another. Wow. It didn't really strike me until my son was born, and now he's almost 17, that there is nothing we share in common. Absolutely nothing. And so it took a little journey for me, because in the beginning, you kind of want your son to, chip off the old block. Yeah, you want to share some things in common, and we have nothing in common to this day. I think he struggled with that too, okay? We kind of, have different styles. But it's about growing, and it's about, number 2, recommitting. And what that means is appreciating. There's a good word. Appreciating those differences, because if you believe in number 1, you got to go to number 2. If you believe that God created that, now you got to respect and appreciate those differences and just kind of celebrate that. And so I found myself, I had to now celebrate his differences. Much like I have to celebrate how my wife is so different from me. Does that make sense? That's a very important thing that we have to keep in mind. Appreciate those differences. So let me ask you right now, why did you date your spouse? Why? Okay. Why were you attracted? Why did you like those styles? This is a very simple but a very serious question. You need to go back to the original motivations, the original attractions, and you need to remind yourself why you loved her in the first place, why you loved him in the first place. And go back, and you need to appreciate all over again. Much like I had to appreciate my wife all over again, appreciate my son for who he is and how different he is, you got to go back, and you have to appreciate. You can do that during a breakout session. Share, discuss how your spouse is so different from you, but then, you know what? How you're going to now recommit. You're going to now reappreciate all of those differences. Make sense? All right, let's keep going, okay? Here's a verse that I want you to memorize. It's only 2 words. Can you do it? 1 Corinthians chapter 13 is that great chapter on love. Verse 7 is very important for marriage. Verse 7 says, love hopes. What that means is that you will now look at the other person and now you will hope for the best. You will look at the other person and you will see good things. You're not just going to see the differences in a negative light, but you are now going to look at the differences and you're going to celebrate those differences. Here's another way to say it. Love hope means you're going to see the good potential in the other person. Here's another one that I think is very practical, and that is love hope means you are going to, listen, give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. Let that sink in. Give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. If you don't have that hope, you will always look at the differences and other things as, another reason to criticize her, another reason to attack him. But love, hope means you will now, again, we talked about covering and many other things last night, but now we're adding a positive dimension to it, a positive layer, and that is you are now going to give the benefit of the doubt. You're going to cheer on, you're going to celebrate those differences. And so love hopes is a great verse you want to have in your back pocket and take out every time and remind yourself, okay, why you married somebody, okay, that is just so different from you. So this is the biblical perspective here. Always thinking about the good reasons, the good ways, or even take some time, okay? You deep thinkers out there, and all of you should be. Take time and sit back and just look at your spouse and say, wow, God made my spouse that way. Okay? Celebrate that. God made my spouse that way. Now, I've actually done that because I'm so fascinated by the fact that she's so different from me. I'm fascinated by that. How is this person so different from me? I think about that. And it's my job to celebrate that and marvel that God is a creative God. God created all different personalities, all different styles. And so, can I say it this way? Barnabas is always going to be Barnabas, and Paul is always going to be Paul. Okay? These are different personalities, and God created them for different purposes. To balance you. Okay, here's a word I didn't use yet. Okay, this is a good word. To balance you. Why? Because you're out of whack. You're not balanced. You're not perfect. You're incomplete. You know, when your wife or wife-to-be walks down the aisle, okay, I'm talking about your wedding day, okay, what you're really saying, so the groom is standing right here, right? Wife is coming down the aisle. What you're really saying is, I've invited all of you to witness how this one woman coming down the aisle, out of all the other women I could have married, this one woman coming down the aisle makes me complete. That's the biblical. Now, if you want to talk about that or ask questions on that theology, we have Q&A. But you're incomplete, okay? It's not good for the man to be alone, Genesis 2:18, right? That's what God said. So when the woman is coming down, she makes him complete. So balance, there's the word right there. And so you got to understand that. You got to recommit to that. You got to appreciate that. So yeah, she's different. Yeah, he's different. But now you got to look at it as a good thing. For example, check it out. Differences create a complementary relationship. You are incomplete without her. You are better with her. That's God's purpose or God's will for your life. So it's a complementary design. Or here's another phrase that I'm a big fan of, like animal shows and things, and I learned this from the animal kingdom here. Differences create a symbiotic relationship. You know what symbiosis is? It's like two completely different animals. You'd never put them together, okay, in the animal kingdom. But, you know, have you seen it on animal shows? Two completely different animals helping one another, right? That's what we're talking about here. So, for example, you got the crocodile and that bird, right? So she's the crocodile, right? Your wife is a crocodile. And how many times does she want to she just wants to just bite down on her man, that little bird, you know? Just bite down on him out of anger. Why? He's so different. Why can't he be more like a crocodile? Okay? But the point is, okay, he serves a complete different purpose. Okay? She'll bite down, he'll never be able to pick out those parasites out of her teeth, right? So that's God's design. You look at the animal kingdom and you marvel at how two completely different species are able to, here's a word I didn't use, benefit from one another. This is God's design. Stop complaining. Here's another way to put it. Stop complaining that you're different. If you keep complaining that you're different, you are completely misunderstanding God's purpose. God brought you together because you are different. You guys bring different skills, different abilities to the table, okay? And so you can learn from creation. Creation reflects God's marvelous design, ultimately expressed in relationships that reflect symbiosis. And that can be seen in its highest form in marriage between a man and a woman. So you look at like a manatee, right? That big sea cow. So your wife is the big sea cow, right? But, she's irritated by, just kidding, come on. She's irritated by that little fish that's always around her. But, it's the beauty of nature, right? That's what God does. As a little fish picks off the parasites and all the vegetation that is growing around the manatee. And so when you look at creation and you just stare at these animal shows, you marvel at the symbiotic relationship, but you now got to apply it to your marriage and say, that's God's design. What are we talking about? We're talking about recommitting, okay? We're talking about, number 2, recommitting, right? To those differences. Stop complaining and start looking at that with fresh eyes. Appreciate and celebrate. And again, one last time, because I gave the example of my son, you can apply this to parenting as well. When you see your children having personalities that maybe you don't like, okay, can I say it that way? Does your child have a personality you don't like, style? You got to kind of get back to yourself. And you got to appreciate how God has created that person and bring out the best in that person. You guys okay? So far, so good? We're almost done here, okay? Time flies. All right, let's wipe the blackboard and bring in number 3. Build teamwork through your differences. All right, so reason number 3 is all about personality differences, stylistic differences. We've already agreed that opposites attract, okay? And so with all of these differences, you've got to now, positively, number 3, build teamwork through your differences. This is very important, okay? We've established you guys are different, and the reason why I use the word team is if you guys are sports fans, or even if you're in a corporate world and you have teams, the idea of a team is that different members of the team bring different things to the team. That's the idea. And so the team concept is that you have different roles, okay? And you're going to bring different roles to that. And so I guess you could say your teammates, and you're bringing those different skills and different personalities, or how about this? I don't think I use this word. Strengths. You're bringing different strengths into the relationships. Granted, there are weaknesses that come with it. It's very rare that a human being is balanced with every skill. Truth is, more likely, you have some weaknesses, but you were attracted to somebody who does not have those same weaknesses. Chances are, and this is so true, when I've already said twice now that my wife is so different from me, another way to translate that is she's got a whole different set of strengths that I don't have. And when she brings those strengths into the relationships, that is the beauty of the relationship. And so you work together, you're a team, okay? You're bringing different roles, you got different responsibilities, you have different complementations that you're bringing into the relationships. And with all that said, I'm going to say something that could lead to a big misunderstanding, but I want you to hear me out, okay? If it doesn't make sense, talk about it in your breakout, ask me more about it, but here we go, okay? If this is true, I'm going to say this. The style doesn't matter. I've acknowledged that they exist, but it doesn't matter. I really don't care. And I say this because people come into counseling and they want to change their spouse. It's all finger pointing, okay? They don't like how their spouse is. And I have never fell for that, okay? Because here's the point. God gave you that style. And so when we're talking about conflict and resolving that conflict, okay, style doesn't really matter. What really matters is the result. That's what matters in a relationship. You bring something to the table, and what ultimately you bring to the table, okay, the result is all that matters. And so can I say it this way, just in case you might be misunderstanding, is here's the thing. I don't care if you are extroverted. I don't care if you're introverted. I don't care if you're aggressive. I don't care if you're passive. Okay? In counseling, I don't even touch it. It doesn't matter. Because that's God's, decision in making you that way. I'm not going to change that. That's a huge waste of time. That's totally going in the wrong direction. And so in counseling, it does not matter whether you are introvert, extrovert, passive, a strong leader, maybe a more indirect style. Doesn't matter. I don't care about any of those things. So I guess I can say it this way. The guy's a little shy. He's a little passive. By the way, what I'm about to say right now is one of the biggest counseling issues I've faced over the years, and that is this. The chances are, can I be very straightforward with you guys? If you are a strong, confident woman, the chances are you are going to marry a very nice guy. Okay? You know what I mean? If you are a strong, confident, aggressive woman, chances are you are going to marry a guy who is attracted to that. Okay? So, he's attracted to power. He's attracted to confidence. He's attracted to your aggressiveness. He's attracted to how direct you are. Now, that's all good. I'm not going to touch that. I'm not going to change that. That's God, and that's how it's going to be. It's like my second daughter, Stephanie, right? She's 24 years old now, and she's praying to go to medical school, and so she's waiting on that. But what I've noticed in her, because she's so aggressive, she's so competitive, she's so like loud and happy and just energetic, and I noticed all her friends are they're like introverted and, they don't talk at all. And I said, hey, Stephanie, how come all your friends are so passive? They never talk, They're just like completely withdrawn. And she said, I like it that way. And I said, really? And she goes, oh yeah, that means I get to talk more, okay? And so my point is, she figured it out. That's how it's going to be. She's single, okay? She's not married. And chances of her marrying a nice guy that is attracted to her, Wonder Woman skills, that power that she has, that confidence, that high, ultra-competitive, spirit, like I got to be number one, like she's got that. She's going to draw somebody who doesn't have that. It's not a complaint. I'm just stating the fact. That's how it's going to be. And so, I'm predicting in my daughter's future marriage, the most classic problem that I face in counseling is going to come out. And that is the aggressive woman and the passive man. Okay? Do you know why that's becoming a problem? Because society has no tolerance for that. This society, and I hate this, I absolutely hate this with a capital H. I hate how society is driven by stereotypes. Okay? You watch commercials, it's all about men being men, women being women. They poke fun at that, whatever. You see it on TV, it's how culture is right now. Men have the pressure to be strong, aggressive, in your face, direct, and all of those things. And men feel a lot of pressure with that, to be strong, confident, and all those. Those are stereotypes, all right? I hate that because that does not take into account how diverse and creative God is. God doesn't create every man to be like that. God creates everybody to be different. And so there is great danger with stereotypes. If you buy into them, I'm going to say that's when the fireworks begin. Because now you're looking at the man that you were attracted to. There was a time when you liked that kind of man. You liked the fact that he followed you. You liked the fact that he didn't stand up to you. You liked the fact that you could be aggressive and confident and share your opinions, and he didn't have a problem with that. But now, you get married. Remember? Love first, hate later. And now the very thing that you loved, now you begin to hate. And now you go after him and say, why can't you be this? Why can't you be that? Why? Because of the stereotypes that are in your heart. You want your man to be a man. And your idea of a man is he's got to be this, this, and that. I was in Sacramento many years ago. And this conference was actually put together by the church because of this one couple. Sometimes that happens, like the whole church was stressing out because of this one couple. And so they did a marriage conference for this one couple, okay? And they invited me to come up. And so it was like very dramatic because everybody's looking at this couple and hoping that they would change and so forth. And they were Sacramento has so many educated people. So she was a doctor and he was a doctor, okay? Two high-achieving people. And so there came a point, this is all true, and because counseling is confidential, I can't tell you all the details, but just speaking generally so that you can relate, that there came a point in the conference where I had to meet this couple, okay? And so, as soon as they come in, and I've never met them before, I don't even know their names, I don't even know what the problem is. But from the minute I saw them, I knew what the problem is. Okay? They've been married for 15 years. They've been to so many counselors and so many things. I could tell, less than 10 seconds, what the problem is. He, in every way, I could tell. Okay? You can tell people right from a mile away, whether they're extroverts, introverts, their style. Okay? I could tell he was so withdrawn. Just looking at the floor in every way. She is so aggressive. But I don't want to come out and say, I know what the problem is before, I even meet them. So I let them talk. But after about an hour, of course the problem is. She said it. I can't stand how you're passive. I can't stand how you are not engaged in our life. Okay? You are not actively involved in anything. And he just sat there and his head was down. He was defeated. He was crushed. Here was this high-powered doctor, achieved so many things, but his marriage was failing and his wife was pushing him down. What do you do in those situations? This is a classic situation. There are thousands upon thousands of couples out there where the women are aggressive and the men are not. What's wrong with those couples? Nothing. Okay? That's how it's supposed to be. If God created you to be an aggressive woman, you're blessed with a man who likes that. Okay? But here's the problem. She completely lost sight of that. He lost sight of it as well. What do you do in that situation? Okay. What do you do? I said style doesn't matter, right? What matters is the result. And so, let me cut to the chase. Here's the verse that I took out. I said in 1 Timothy chapter 3 verses 4a, he must manage his family well. God has called the man to be the spiritual leader of the home. He must manage his home family well. That includes his wife, that includes his children. This verse, I'm going to say very clearly, if you're taking notes, you got to write this down. This verse has nothing to do with style. Nothing. It has to do with result. Remember, I said style doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the result. So here's the thing. I really don't care whether your managerial style is aggressive or whether it's passive. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is, are you going to get the job done? In companies, churches, any organizations, sports teams, whatever, there's all different styles. Some people are very aggressive, some people are very loud, some people are very quiet. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is get it done. Get that job done. And I have seen over and over again in my lifetime, I have observed passive people. You can call them weak, but you shouldn't. Okay? People who are more like following in their style, you can call that some sort of sinful whatever twist, and I'm saying you shouldn't. Okay? I've seen passive leaders actually get the job done. Have you? In their own way, in their own style, get the job done. And so here is the verse you got to keep in your back pocket. Keep it in your back pocket and say, as long as I manage my family well, doesn't matter, I have to be loud, I don't have to yell, A lot of people don't like the yelling, to be honest, right? A lot of people don't like the indirect. A lot of people actually like the more, indirect, show by example, that type of style. And so in every way, what I say to the passive man, okay? I don't know what your relationship is like right now, so I'm not talking to any of you directly. But I'm speaking generally to say, if you are a passive man, okay, and you are married to an aggressive wife, great, that's God's design for your life. That's God's will for your life. All I'm saying is, you're still the spiritual leader. Empower her. Bring out the best in her. Make sure that all her skills and her style is expressed. But then you be the one in your own quiet style, get the job done. Manage your family well. So to that couple in Sacramento, right? He was down and defeated. He felt like, you know why he was so down? He felt like he had to be a different guy, right? That's the pressure he was feeling, right? He had to maybe change, go through a complete personality change, and he was stressing out because deep down inside as a grown man, he knew he could never be somebody different. And I said, you don't have to be somebody different. You just got to be yourself. You just got to get the job done. So can you, and here's my homework for all you passive men out there, can you, in your style, come up with a game plan on how to get it done, okay? In your way, without becoming a different person, get the job done in your family. Lead your family in the right direction. Parent your children in the right direction without changing your style. That's what we got to do. We have to battle the stereotypes in this world right now and get the job done regardless of the style and actually celebrate the style that God has given to you. And so hopefully today you can take that to heart and you will find hope that no matter what style God has given to you, as long as you focus on your style, your gifts, that's all that matters. That's the answer, okay? And so the same thing goes for the aggressive wife. You know, I'm not trying to change her, okay? She brings her like hands-on. She's proactive. She's very vocal. And so with her voice and with her action, she's always like one step ahead of everybody. She anticipates things. She heads off things at the pass. She sees all of these things, and that's just a gift from God. Let her be that as well. And so together, you guys can have a complementary relationship. Because when all this is said and done, and Jesus comes, you want to hear those words, well done, good and faithful servant, right? Right? Whether you got 5 talents, whether you got 2, you want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Whether you are shy, whether you're aggressive, you want to hear, well done, because it's all about being faithful in the end. Amen? That's what it's about. Focus on faithfulness, not on style. All right, we're making really good time. Are we doing okay, Pastor, with time? I just got one more point, and then we'll break out, okay? And that is number 4. Number 4, keep your differences, but sacrifice them when necessary. Okay? So, you're different, right? You don't have to change. You can keep all your differences in your back pocket. And you know what? You can express them continually. And so let me just go over some bullet points real quick, and you can ask questions in the Q&A underneath it. You can keep your differences, okay, your stylistic differences. Here's a word I didn't use. Preferences. You have preferences about how you live, how you want your house to be, how you want to raise your kids. Preferences, even your preferences, there is freedom. There's another good word. Freedom that God gives. Romans chapter 14 is the classic passage that gives freedom to that. You know in that passage, go ahead and look at that. We don't have time today, but ask questions again if you want. In that passage, there was a controversy of the meat that was sacrificed to idols. And in that passage, the controversy was that some people said, no, you cannot eat that meat because it was sacrificed to idols. Other people said, what's the big deal? It's just meat. You can just eat it. So you now have a split. Both groups felt like they were doing it to the Lord. Lord, I'm not going to eat this because it was sacrificed to idols. Fine. Lord, I am going to eat this meat because you're the creator of all things, and thank you, Lord, for that. Fine. The point is, both were doing it with the right motivation to the Lord. Point is, there's freedom, okay? And that freedom is a general principle. It's a general principle that you can apply even to marriage to say there's a lot of preferences, there's a lot of convictions, there's a lot of faith expressions that you don't have to be, okay, it's the first time I'm going to say this. You don't have to be on the same page on everything. You don't. Okay? I know you get frustrated saying, why can't we agree on this? You don't have to agree on everything. You can be different. You don't have to be on the same page on every point. You can actually keep your differences. Does that make sense? All right, let's keep on going. You can express your differences, okay, when your spouse is not there. So you can actually show those expressions and when she is not there. Meaning, like, for example, I'm here, my wife is in California. I am not bound by her at all. I can freely express who I am, and I'm not sensitive to who she is and what she wants. Why? She's not here, okay? It's as simple as that. And so in the same way, guys, when you are with your guy friends, you don't have to be sensitive to your wife. She's not there, okay? Wives, when you are not with your husband, you can be who you are. He's not there, okay? And so this is actually a biblical principle. Why? Because in Romans 14, if you are the kind of people that are saying, no, you cannot eat that meat, and you say, well, I can eat the meat, what do? You can eat the meat when this guy is not there, okay? Why? Because here's the thing. You might think that that's just something funny, but the truth is, the reason why you do that is out of love. Love is the overriding principle. The reason why you don't do it in this person's presence is love is more important. That's what Romans 14 is saying. Because love is more important, you're not going to eat the meat in front of that person because that person would be offended. Does that make sense? And so when the person is there, you don't do it. But then when you're not there, you can be yourself. And so in the same way, if you have preferences and style, you can just be yourself when she's not there, okay? Or when he is not there. And so again, God created those differences. I know that sounds crazy, but you can ask more questions about those things, okay? So here's the fourth item there. This will be the last thing. Sacrifice your differences when you are with your spouse. So that's a little different from the third one, right? Okay, the second one there. It's a little different. You can sacrifice those differences for the sake of the other person. And so, for example, here's a real example. It's not a big deal, but just giving you a silly example. My wife is hypersensitive to a clean kitchen. Okay, clean kitchen. She is. Now, doesn't mean she's clean about everything. Like, laundry. Sometimes laundry piles up and, she never does laundry. 31 years, she doesn't do laundry. I do the laundry, okay? You know why? I love laundry. I don't know why. Okay, anyway, it's not about laundry. Back to kitchen. She is like neurotic about the kitchen being clean. The counters have to be clean. It has to smell nice. The Clorox. Every cup, every dish has to be in place. It's just got to be picture perfect all the time. So after dinner, okay, it's got to be completely cleaned out. Okay, everything. So every dinner. And here's the thing that she just, she can't stand. Are you like this? If she goes on a trip, before she goes on a trip, she has to clean the kitchen. She's got to clean the house because she can't stand coming home to a dirty house. Anybody like that? Okay, you come home and the house is dirty and that bothers you. And so the kitchen has to be clean. So you know what I did before I got on the plane to Denver? I cleaned the kitchen. Oh man, that kitchen was so clean. All right, every dish in place, wipe the counters, mop the floor. I did all of that before I went to the airport. Why? Because when my wife comes home, she's going to see a clean kitchen. Okay? So that's an example of how I would do things, sacrificing kitchen. It's not a big deal to me. That's the point. It's not a big deal to me, but it's a big deal to her. And because it's a big deal to her, you will sacrifice your freedoms, even though it's not a big deal, okay? If you go to my hotel room right now, it's kind of messy a little bit, Not a big deal, okay? But for her, it's a big deal. And if it's a big deal to her, okay, then you will ultimately sacrifice. Now, here's how we're going to close now. You know why we're talking about sacrifice? Do you know why we're talking about esteeming others, doing all of these things? Because ultimately, all of these things are about being a real Christian. A real Christian is about sacrifice. A real Christian is about looking unto Jesus as the greatest example of somebody who laid down all the things that were his rights, his privileges, his benefits. I'm talking about Philippians 2. Laying down all of those things for the sake of other people. And so the ultimate reason why you would do this, sacrifice all of the things that you could really have, these are freedoms, right? When she's there, when he's there, that in every way you will sacrifice your freedoms for the sake of the other person. And when you do that, when you focus on the last point, it will bring a tremendous difference into your relationship. Because what happens is there's kind of a mutuality that occurs, where when she sees me doing those things, she will then respond, reciprocate. She will respond in a way where she will then do things for my benefit as well. And when two people do that, mutually benefiting one another, even though they're completely different from one another, sacrificing for the sake of one another, therein lies the greatest testimony and the greatest example of what a marriage ought to be, reflecting our Lord Jesus Christ himself. All right? All right, we're going to have some announcements. We're going to break out, but why don't we take a moment and pray together? Let's take a moment and pray about reason number 3. Last night was reason number 4, unmet expectations. Today, this morning, number 3, personality differences. You are different from your spouse. Would you pray about that right now? And pray about the decision you make now to complement your spouse. Bless your spouse. Would you pray that prayer right now? Father, just like last night, we look to you. We look to you as the greatest example of sacrifice. Though all rights and privileges and benefits belong to you, somehow you would lay them aside and to do something so unbelievable in the very sending of your Son into this world, laying down all things and sacrificing for the sake of somebody else. Lord, our marriage, in a very mysterious and profound way, is to reflect that great sacrifice, that we would mutually sacrifice to one another, mutually respect one another, humble ourselves before each other, and in every way reflect the ministry of sacrifice that you have called us to have in our marriages. Whatever style you have given to us, Lord, help us to just give you thanks for that style. If there be someone here that's passive, let that person give thanks for the style that was given to him or her. If there's anyone here that is very aggressive in their style, let that person give you thanks for those skill sets and gifts that you have given to him or her. Father, we all should be celebrating what you have done in our lives, but we should ultimately be challenged and inspired today to use those differences to bless one another, complement one another, to create a relationship of symbiosis in such a way that we would bless one another, not break one another. And so, Lord, help each and every marriage here today to see the greater picture, the greater purpose for their marriage, that they might be a blessing to the world, blessing to their own children who observe them, blessing to the church, blessing in the ways that you have called us towards the greater purposes for our lives. We give you this morning, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.